Hello and welcome to another video with me, Jo from J.H.Leather. This is part 3 of our bridle making tutorial, and today I will be showing you how to make the Caveson Noseband. So for this tutorial you will need a 3/4 inch and a 1/2 inch bridle buckle, some looping, a 1 1/8 strip of leather, a 1/2 inch strip of leather and a little bit of 3/4 inch leather as well. So to start with, we will be using our 1 1/8 strip of leather to make the front of our noseband. So we want to square the end off there, and then start marking our holes. We want 2 inches to the first one, and then we want 5 holes 3/4 of an inch apart. Once you've marked the 5th hole, we're going to mark a further 1 inch away from here and just mark this on the edge of our leather, and we're then going to mark another 1 inch from that, and then another 1/4 inch on from that also. This will be where our straight bits end and our taper will begin. So once you've done that, you just even it up on both sides of the leather, and we're now going to set our our dividers to about 1/4 of an inch. You just want to mark on the end of the leather just to make sure that the gap in the middle is 3/4 of an inch apart. And then once you're happy, you can just mark this between our marks that we just put on earlier. And then with your ruler, you want to mark the tapers on. And then that 1/4 inch mark we left there, that is going to be where our our buckle strap will be stitched in later. So once we've done that, we're going to mark the overall length of our noseband from the middle hole to where the buckle will sit. So on a cob size noseband, we want that to be 25 inches. So we're just going to mark that on roughly there with the ruler. So the next thing we're going to do is make the lay for our noseband. So you want your 3/4 inch strip here. You just want to make a egg point on one end of it here. Now I'm going to make mine 3.5 inches long. You can fit the 3 loops on here if you space it out like I'm showing you what I'm going to do here. 3.5 inches is fine. If you do find that a bit tight, you can make yours 4 inches long. Should you wish. So once you've marked the overall length, you're going to get a little round object and just draw around the edge, and then you're going to cut this edge. So there's your lay. So you can just cut out your looping here. You want 3 fixed loops on this. You can just lay them out how they will be stitched onto your lay. So basically you want the very round end will be at the end of the noseband. So you want 1 loop there and then 2 loops behind, and just mark where the crew punch to your buckle will go. So once you've done that, we're going to get our main noseband bit back, and we're just going to lay onto our strap just to get a rough idea of the overall measurements that we will need. And then you want to add on about 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch past that the end of that lay. Just mark a line with your set square and cut this, and then you want to find another round object, and we're going to match the round ends here. And then cut the end of your noseband. So you should have something that looks a little bit like this. So the next thing we are going to do is just to mark on, or just to cut out even our point that we marked on. Now once you've cut out your point end, you're then going to want to mark on your bridle point. So for 3/4 inch, I normally mark just over 1 inch in from the end and just over a 1/16 in from either end. Also, you can mark with a ruler between these marks, or you can just cut straight between them like I am here, making sure to nick those corners also. So that is the noseband cut out. So we're just going to mark now where our point and buckle strap will go. Okay, so you can now mark on where your point and cheek strap will be. You basically want to mark where that 1/4 inch mark is, and then 1/2 inch away from that, and then you want 13 inches between the 2 points, and then from that 13-inch mark you can mark another 1/2 inch mark further away. You also want to mark these onto the back of your noseband, because we will stitch a bit of a split down bit onto the back of our point and buckle point, and this will also mark where you will not be edging on your noseband. So we're now going to mark out our point strap for our noseband. So you want to square the best end of your 1/2 inch strap, and then mark out and cut for your bridle point. Again, remembering to nick those corners as you go. We're now going to mark for the hole. So the first one, as always, is 2 inches in from the end, and then we're going to mark 9 holes 5/8 of an inch apart. Now, when you're marking out for your point straps and your buckle straps on here, you've got to remember to add the length or the width of the noseband on. So to start with, I did mine 33 inches overall, plus the 1 1/8 bit. Afterwards, I did work out that was a bit too long. So basically, for the cob-sized noseband, you want 26 inches from the middle hole to the top of the noseband, plus your 1 1/8. So 27 1/8 from that middle hole. So once you've done that, you can then nick the ends on that also, and then we're going to mark out for our buckle point. So you want to mark, we're going to have a 1.5 inch turn, so remembering to add 1.5 inches to the overall length, and you want the point to be 7.5 inches to the top of the noseband, and then remembering to add your 1 1/8 noseband width. Hopefully that all makes sense, and you should have sort of your pieces here. We're going to mark on the back now, so you want just over 1 1/8, so we want to add 1/4 inch to that, so mark 1 3/8 on the back of both of your point and buckle end, and we're going to line this with a strip of split down 1/2 inch leather. So I'm just splitting that on the splitting machine, which you can't see, it's just off camera here. You want that split down to about half thickness. Square the end and then trim the corners. Now we're going to trim this off afterwards, so you can make this longer than your 1 3/8 bit. It'll just make it easier to trim down at the end, and you will want 2 of these. So you're basically now going to edge number 1 all our pieces here. And so when you're edging, you want to edge everywhere that isn't going to be stitched to something else, if that makes sense. So on our lei, we're just going to edge around the grain side, and on our point strap we'll edge the whole of the grain, and then on the flesh side we will just leave the 1 3/8 bit that we marked earlier unedged, if that makes sense. Okay, so once you've done that, you are now ready to stain everything. So I sped up the whole staining and creasing process here just to save a bit of time, but also you guys don't really need to see me staining and creasing everything every time. Okay, so once you've finished staining and creasing your bits, we're now going to mark out for our crews. So on our lay, you want the tiniest crew you have. So I'm using a 35 crew here, and just mark that with some tram lines either side and punch all the way through. The only other crew hole that we need will be on our buckle point. So again, just mark that on the flesh side. We're doing reverse turns on our bridle like we have been doing throughout, and just mark again and punch through all the way. With your crew on your lay, you might not need to edge the underside. If you put your buckle in, you'll be able to see how it sits, but you will need to edge number 6 around the back of that 1/2 inch one that we just punched there. And now we are ready to get stitching. So basically you want your stitching to start in line with the front of your crew, and with the back of the crew you want it like a stitch or so, a stitch or two in from the end. So you can just line it up and then set your dividers to your stitching width and mark between these points, and then stitch mark with your number 10 stitch marker. So once you've done that, you can then skive down both of these ends to 1/2 thickness and trim off any fluffy bits if you have any. And then once you've done that, we are now going to tack our loops onto this. It's just a bit easier to tack it on the loops onto this now, and then tack everything onto the noseband afterwards, if that makes sense. So you're going to tack your first loop in, and then you want to tack your other 2 loops in on the opposite side. This will make sense when we're stitching. Basically, we'll start stitching from that top side, and with the same thread we'll go all the way around our lay. You don't have to use the same thread all the way around, but you will have to mark out or tack this in the same way, so you're stitching towards yourself. And once you've done that, you can then pop this onto the end of your noseband and tack into place. And you just want to make sure you get this tacked in centrally. I will say now, I hate stitching lace onto nosebands. It's the bit I just find the worst on bridle making. So make of that what you will. I didn't enjoy doing it. You might enjoy doing it. And then just double check your overall length there, just to make sure that's all okay. So once you've done that, we are now going to stitch mark the end of our point strap. So this one's quite easy. You basically just stitch mark 1 3/8 up from the end on both of these, and then sort of stitch mark down both sides and across the bottom of them also. And now mark it again with your number 10 stitch marker, stitch around these marks. Okay, so once you've done that, you can now skive these ends down to half thickness. And with your backing pieces, you can skive the ends of these down to half thickness as well. And we're just going to tack this one onto the top of our point strap. So I'm just going to tack this onto this point strap to start with. We will assemble sort of both the point and the buckle strap onto the main noseband once we have stitched that lay on. It just makes everything a whole lot easier to hold in the clamps if you haven't got everything sort of flapping about tacked on. And we're just going to stitch mark our buckle turn here. So if you just make your turn and pop your buckle on, just see where you can stitch to, and mark with your thumbnail where your stitching will go, and even up with your set square, and then draw a line with your dividers between these two marks and stitch mark with your number 10 stitch marker. We can then skive the end of this turn down to half thickness. And we're now going to mark or cut out our fixed and running loop for this strap. So you want to wrap your looping around your strap and just mark with your thumbnail there, and then square the ends of this bit, and you can just wrap it around again just to mark where you want your stitching to go to. Normally in a 1/2 inch strap I find it's about 3 stitch marks, and just mark both ends either side and skive down to half thickness. So we can now stitch our running loop together. So as always, we're going to use single hand stitching here and stitch this loop together. If you're still a bit unsure on how to stitch and make running loops, I'll put a link to my loop description in the video for you. And then once you've finished stitching your loop, you can put it onto your looping stick and block it up whilst we do some stitching. So the first thing we're going to stitch is the lay onto our noseband. So we're going to double hand stitch this, and you want to start with a back stitch as always. Again, I've sped this part of the tutorial up just to sort of save a bit of time on the overall video. You guys don't need to see me stitch everything all the time. So it's basically starting off with a back stitch as always, and then stitching the rest as normal. So when you get to where your loop's going to go in, like with our normal looping, you can just pre-awl this bit, especially because the stitch marks on this will be on or underneath the loop. And when you get to the end of this section, you want to do 1.5 back stitches here, and then with your stitch marks on the other side, if you just stitch mark the first 3 and then thread your loops through the further away 2 of those, if that makes sense, and then you want to stitch back from or towards the end of the noseband, and then you can continue stitching as normal. This effectively creates a 1.5 inch back stitch, and this will lock your threads once you've trimmed them. Alternatively, if you want, you can use a whole new thread here and just do your normal 1 stitch back and then can stitch normally. So yeah, I'm just making sure that the end of my lay here is going to sit in the centre of my strap. And then pre-awling where your loop will be. So once you've got your lay stitched on, we're now going to just finish off our loop here. So you just want to recrease the loop or the running loop for your buckle point. And just pop that on, and then you can now tack your buckle in place. Remembering to add in that fixed loop. But to start with, we're going to stitch on our point strap here. Now this is a bit fiddly, and you may need to take a few attempts to get this on with that backing piece in the right place. You want to make sure it's all lined up nice and straight, and you don't want the backing to be wonky off to one side either. So I tack that on, and then I actually stitch the buckle turn on the buckle strap. So once you're done stitching your buckle turn, we're now going to stitch mark our point strap onto the main noseband. And starting with one back stitch here, and then stitch on the strap as normal. And once you stitch that on, you sort of tack on your bridle, your buckle point. And stitch this on as we did the point strap. Now it's important to note you want your buckle point closest to the point end on the noseband, if that makes sense. So you'll have your point where your noseband will do up to, and the first strap you'll come to will be the buckle point, or the buckle strap. So once you get everything cut on, you can now trim the ends on from the back pieces of our buckle and point ends, and then just nick very carefully the corners with the head knife also, and then just edge these with your number 1 edge tool. And your noseband is sort of completely together, and now we just need to block the loops and edge, stain, stain and recrease the whole of the noseband here. Okay, so once you've finished creasing and staining, you will need to just punch the holes on your noseband here. So first of all, just even up any holes if you haven't evened them up already, and then punch the holes with your rotary hole punch. Hopefully your noseband looks a little bit like this one. And that is the finished noseband. Hopefully yours looks a little bit like this one. If you do have any problems or any questions, please feel free to email me or leave a comment in the comment section below. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Please click the thumbs up button if you did like the video, and subscribe for more videos and tutorials. If you'd like to support us, you can head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/J.H.Leather. There will also be a link at the end of the video, and you can sponsor us from as little as $1 a month, and you can just help us make more and better videos. Thank you for watching.